My name is Montwain Gonzales, and I'm the owner and operator of One's Customs Figures. One's Customs is a custom figure company that's pretty much me. And I sculpt everything, man. I sculpt horror, sci-fi. Occasionally I sculpt some comic book related stuff, but mostly horror, I'd say. I'd have to say my introduction to horror was probably Michael Jackson's Thriller. Once I started seeing Rick Baker and all the work that went into creating what we see on screen, you know, like it wasn't simply a guy putting a mask on. I mean, there was a lot of work that went into it. It made me want to become a makeup artist. I wanted to do that. I wanted to see what it was like to work on the molds and the latex and the paints, and all that stuff comes to mind when I think about Rick Baker. And so I began to research and read like Fangoria magazine. You know, that was my go-to. Back then we didn't have internet like that, so what did we have to do? We had to get our hands on whatever we could, and Fangoria was that magazine for me. I remember my first issue, I believe, was, it had Jason on the cover. I don't remember the number, I have it to this day, but my parents have it, but it was, it had the face, Kane Hodder in full makeup. So that, I guess I began sculpting from that. I was making the Jasons, the Freddys, I was doing the Michael Myers, the American Werewolf in London, which is another one that just had my mind blown. Just on my little action figures, I was a kid now, so silly putty, glue, toilet paper, whatever I can get my hands on that I can shape, clay, wax, I used it, I worked on it. Here is probably the first ever Jason hockey mask I did. Now, I don't know which version this is based on. It could be what I thought was a part 4. And I made this out of a little Bruce Wayne, like Batman figure. I put it on there. You can still see his little face. Now here's, you know, you can see the little fur that I was trying to sculpt back then. And the little ears, which I'm surprised after all these years, are still in good condition. They usually break off. That's probably the first thing that'll break off. You got the little teeth and, yeah, a little evil. It was a constant thing for me to just try to match that, even though I was a little kid and it was terrible. But in my mind, I was matching it. I was like, yeah, I can do this. And I knew after that, I had to do something that involved horror. I'd say the first 6-scale figure that I ever sold was a Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. I put it together out of, I don't know what, nothing, Mighty Putty maybe. And so I threw the figure on eBay and it sold right away. It was a buy it now option. And so that brought me to Night of the Creeps, one of my favorite characters. It was this creature, you know, he's just a zombie. He had the little escape, you know, mental asylum look and you know, no eyeballs and just freaky smile on his face. You know, something that I just created with my hands for fun, on a whim, threw it out there for the world, and somebody bought it. And I guess it fueled me a little more to keep going. My customer fan base is essentially me. You know, they're fans of these characters. I'm a fan of these characters, you know. People want to see their childhood come to life, but within their hands. It's weird, it's strange because, but I understand it, you know. Who doesn't want to hold an interpretation of their favorite character in their hands, you know, pose them and recreate scenes from what they remember, you know? So without sounding corny, I guess, I'm like bringing these guys' childhoods to life, especially if it's something that they want and that they ask for, you know? Now, Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, directed by John Buechler, probably one of my favorite Friday the 13th movies, definitely my favorite look. You know, I remember seeing the rib cage, the spinal cord, the horrific face, and you've never seen Jason like that until this point. He's scary. Kane Hodder's first appearance and what he did with Jason with the whole breathing, the neck turn, it blew my mind and it stood out right away. And my goal was to capture that essence of Kane, you know, to make sure that when you stare at this figure, even though it's posing, that you see this guy breathing. You see him ready to, you know, slice somebody or get a victim, you know? The face only a mother can love. Pamela.
Oh, my sweet, innocent Jason.
A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, came out in 1987. And in this particular film, you know, Freddy took all sorts of forms, but there was a cool puppet. And I remember seeing the scene and just seeing it hanging on the wall in the background, and it stood out. And from that day, I knew that eventually I was gonna create a piece like that myself. As far as the design process goes, I always like to start off with the source material, you know? I watch the film thoroughly, I take photos, you know, screen cap, whatever I need to do to get that angle, you know? And it's difficult sometimes. But with the internet, it's gotten a lot easier, so I've been able to look up behind the scenes footage and photographs and get a little bit closer than I might have been able to even a few years back. One of my favorite parts of creating a custom figure is the sculpting process. You have to start off with some sort of armature or something underneath the clay, first of all. So a lot of times I often get like a ball of aluminum foil. Sometimes I'll put a pencil in it just so I can hold it properly when I sketch. So, you know, after many hours, perhaps days of sculpting, comes the molding. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your silicone and you're gonna basically mold the head sculpt. And after that, you take your resin, which is a liquid form of plastic that later hardens. And then you are able to create copies of the head sculpt. But you really bring it to life once you add the paint. So I made sure I added a lot of washes and darker colors to fill in all the little scars of his face, you know, to really bring out the teeth and the eyes, so that when you take a look at it, you really see the likeness come to life. And after that comes the 1/6 clothing process. I work with a few people, one of them being Tanilla Ayers. Now, she is one of my favorite 1/6 tailors. We met online, and I knew the minute that I seen what she was doing that I had to be a part of it. I had to collaborate with her. Because, you know, it's one thing to, you know, sculpt a Freddy Krueger or a Jason. You know, those are things you don't see every day. But when it comes to tailoring, you know, real life outfits and things that we do see every day, it's not as easy, you know? You're trying to mimic something that's, you know, so regular to the eye, but within 1/6 scale. You know, how do you do that? And I knew that with her and I working together, we can really create magic.
I started as an accident looking for something online, and I met One's Customs, Montwain, and we started talking and we clicked to each other. And since then, we're doing loads of other things. We've done Michael project, which was fantastic. It was a challenge. Learned a lot from that. It takes a set of coveralls takes about just the sewing, not the designing, searching fabrics, accessories, anything. Classic one took me 8 hours and 4 minutes just to sew one. Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Over the last few years, the climate has changed tremendously, and I could see more and more people who thought maybe, like, what is this? It was kind of weird, now understanding and accepting it. I'm seeing more reviews on YouTube.
It's really, really good. I mean, the detail he put on this, it's incredible.
The Facebook groups, they're everywhere. I'm scrolling on my Facebook and my timeline is 6 scale figures all day long. On Instagram, the tags are just, they're everywhere. 6 scale figure, custom figure. Maybe that's just my world I created for myself, but I don't believe that, because my friends who have no idea what this stuff is are telling me about it like I don't know, you know? And so yes, definitely the community of 1/6 is growing rapidly, I'd say. It's gonna only continue to grow. I don't do a lot outside of my work, to be honest. I'm a workaholic. I love doing what I do. It doesn't even feel like work sometimes. And you know, it's really, I'd say it's changed my life. I was working just regular 9 to 5, you know, which was cool, you know, it put food on the table. But as the business grew, my life grew, if I can say that. It really showed me the power of what art can do for you. I could never imagine that years later that I would be sculpting a zombie custom figure for my own mind, right? That people are willing to spend their hard-earned dollar on. I've been able to make a living, you know, and really do things that otherwise I might never have done. You know, not to mention all the connections with people all over the world, you know, who love what I love. And through that, I've met people such as Pure Horror, which She's incredible. She's awesome. She loves horror just as much as I do, you know, and has gotten quite a few things from me, actually, from keychains to head sculpts, Leatherface to the Jason head sculpts, you know, with the removable hockey mask. Michael Myers, she loves Michael Myers, so she has a little bit of everything. Even people who inspired me to do what I do, I am now friends with, you know, and are now telling me that I inspire them. And it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing, and it's real, you know? You can take my hands, and I'll learn how to sculpt with my feet. I love sculpting. It's my passion, it's my art, it's my release, you know? I'll sculpt as long as I'm allowed to.